Hello, hello, welcome to the 26th episode of BINJ Live. I'm Jason Pramas, the, let's see now, Executive Director of the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism, co-host of this show, and the other co-host, our other co-host is, let me point this way at.
Yeah, I think you got it right, although it might be all mirrored up. I'm just getting binge.news. I'm on my computer now, so I've always done the show on my phone. If you're out there wondering why it looks so much better and sounds just fantastic, this is technology. What can I say? A lot of this technology, I got to say, we got during the pandemic. Like there's random stuff here and there, and because I always like to say, I was telling someone at this conference I was recently at that we may be new doing this now, but whether it's Jason or me, we're OGs of digital media. I mean, you can still see the videos on the Boston Phoenix website of when I streamed Obama's freaking inauguration live. It was this clunky ass phone. I think Nokia made it, and it may have even had an antenna. And props to Carly Carioli, my old editor. He had us down in DC, and anyway, it worked, and the videos are still there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know they're still up.
That's obviously early on in video, at least streaming. And then, during Occupy Wall Street, I was in Occupy Boston. I was not a huge streamer. I was taking, there were photographers around. I'd take some video, but I certainly wasn't going back and editing it. How about you?
I was one of the photographers, so I barely did any video in that period. It wasn't so easy, so seamless. There was no Instagram, which is hard to believe, but didn't exist yet.
Video, Facebook would have been I mean, I guess you could upload short videos on Twitter, which I suppose I did sometimes. But really, it was just. I mean, early on that wasn't the case. When I'm talking about I can't even imagine how we live streamed because I think Twitter may have. Oh no, it was YouTube. That's where they're still hosted. Twitter also started and just launched when Obama was inaugurated. I think it launched at South by Southwest the year before, or earlier that year, that March, or maybe 2007. And I remember that's when we were still texting tweets to Twitter, and then they would put them on your account. Or you could do it on your desktop. But
in 2008, I mean, I put some videos up on Open Media Boston, but I shot the video on some big camera I was borrowing from UMass Boston from my friends, and then editing them laboriously and then posting them and then sending people the link with a blurb, right? So it was a multi-step process, which it can be now too. But I mean, these days, you and I have both been now running and gunning with just our phones or whatever. If we happen to be in the field and we just toss out a 30-second to 2-minute video or whatever, and it's up immediately. And it gets more views than most other things we do.
And another blast from the past.
Yeah, I lost mine. I love that thing.
I'm going to send you this one. Now, this is an interesting device because I could be wrong, and I guess it doesn't matter because I'm fine with the one that I'm using right now. But I don't think you can just use this sophisticated device just to link it up and use it as a camera.
I'm sure there's a way to hack it, Chris, but I haven't looked into it yet. You know what I mean?
It's called a Mevo, MEVO, and it's a beautiful piece of machinery. These must have cost like a couple $100 each, right?
It wasn't too bad, but it was $253, something like that each.
It follows you around, which I don't know how much of that I need. It follow my face around if I was going like that. But if you're doing like a TED talk, it'll literally iPod will follow you. I have it like this. I don't know for security purposes.
It gives your phone a much better camera, right? It would link to your phone, and you could walk around with it.
Like your phone is operating it right. Through an app.
It's a little tricky, but
what's the tricky part is are the keys to stream it on the different.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's fussy, but it's like 5-year-old tech or whatever, 6-year-old tech. But I really liked it in the early part of the pandemic, and then when I moved, in 2020, it mysteriously disappeared, and I don't want to cast any aspersions on the moving company I used, but I don't know.
So I gotta say, I was at a conference in California at University Cal Berkeley.
Yes,
journalism conference, and it's interesting because it's not like I don't really have a lot of regrets. Oh, I forgot a big part of that story, which is that of course we got to streaming quite a bit during the pandemic, and that's like I said, we're some of this, the equipment is still around, and it's still sufficient, more than sufficient. But I'll say, so I was at this conference, and it's not like the big really have social media or video totally figured out. I mean,
Yeah.
some have good ideas. We've certainly seen viral stuff, but there was one really good panel by a reporter from the New York Times with two independent journalists who are starting a project on torture called the Bell Project,
Mm-hmm.
and also Mississippi Today or Mississippi Free Press, one or the other. I think Mississippi Today. And it was a joint effort. And listen, the New York Times was kind of made fun of by the moderator, because the funny thing was that, it's one of these things where I'll add my 2 cents. Where the article is just unbelievable, but it's also like the New York Times that could be doing stories like this every week,
Oh
and
yeah, easy.
tokenizing this one. And I'll dig this up. So my point is, so the story did quite well, and one of the reasons was the local partner, Mississippi Today, actually so they have been done with a New York Times editing process is like absolute nightmare. And when it
Right.
was finished, they were like, oh man, we didn't make like a companion TikTok or anything for other people, who aren't New York Times subscribers or in the area maybe, and gonna see it on the website. So they were like, they were exhausted, which I can understand. I've never been through a New York Times editing process, but any national thing is just grueling, often to
Sure.
a ridiculous degree, but that's another story. But so they make this just kind of video. It uses one video of a torture, which is just horrific, and then has them commenting on it. Some of the reporters, and it's not a New York Times product, right? This is a product that went out through the local partner. And
Hmm.
David Barstow, who is I think he's the most winningest. He's won more Pulitzer Prizes than anyone, I think. He was a
Really?
Times icon. Yeah, he runs the program at Berkeley, and he was making fun of not the reporters, of course, but the Times. He's like, so the New York Times, they put all of the editors on this, and it went through the whole, because he knew, the point
Hmm.
was that the title of the panel, 13 million views, and a few things
Wow.
about that. Yeah, that's a lot, but I'm thinking like people who fart in jars get 13 million views, and people
Sometimes,
said a
although a
lot
lot of the
about,
majors are losing their audience, but
yeah, that
yeah.
the New York Times is doing backflips over 13 million views. So I think it's great, brings eyes on a story like that. But things like those kind of anecdotes make me realize, like, you got to run it. We got to do as much unique video as possible, because the difference between what we're doing, I feel, and what I see a lot of is we're doing media. Like, we're about to talk about actual stories that we
Yeah.
reported or that we have reported on, that we know about. And so much we get what? People commenting on stories that people like us write. And that's
Right.
fine, but they fuck it up a lot. And also, like, why they're not doing original reporting. And then there's people who just have no
Well,
idea what the hell they're talking about. And
you're doing stand-up video reporting now with your longer
I think,
shorts. Like
that's
this,
the second time I've ever done that. And I got to
I've
say,
never seen you do that before.
I
Yeah, I
did it
was
once
like, well,
before, and I'll talk about the story. So, I went yesterday, and people can see this on Talking Joints Memo, our friend site, that Jason and I own as opposed to a nonprofit. And we cover
mhm.
cannabis, and there's not a lot of investigative reporting, but basically, from a reporter's perspective, like, I had to go to Suffolk, to the Supreme Judicial Court in downtown
Yep,
Boston. They're
SGC.
covering a ballot initiative to repeal cannabis, and
Yep.
there's basically a lawsuit saying that it's bullshit, it's written terribly, and so I was watching that, and it's the kind of thing where I sat there already. It wasn't that long to cover it, but if I had to come home, dissect all my notes, write a feature, uh, I just can't be wasting time these days. And I think more
Yep.
people. The thing has like 5,000 views already, which is
Yeah,
just
that's
way
great.
more. So that's really good. And
For us, that's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
it's not something I'd always do. It's not something I would have done if that was like the actual story. It's kind of like a tangent to this story of the ballot repeal and the fight against it. And as a catch up on that, basically, it's first of all really interesting. And there were definitely a few people in that courtroom who are just legal nerds, or there for it. I'll tell you,
Stoners.
watching. Well, the Supreme Court justices, these are the state Supreme Court, of course, it's called the SJC, Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts. And, for any topic, I think it'd be pretty fascinating, because you got like these, what, 6 or 8 brilliant justices, and they're
Yeah.
blowing holes in these attorneys. If you don't like lawyers, it's really great to watch them get their ass kicked
Right.
by judges. But I got to say, it was really fascinating. So of course, the ballot initiative that I'm covering doesn't have a number yet. So one to repeal adult use cannabis, as we've exposed. It is, the way they collected the signatures was questionable. They lied to voters, literally telling them it was going to be about something else.
You caught them doing it. I mean, you were the
I
first,
caught
pretty
them
much.
doing it. I was one of the first. I was the first reporter, I think, to write about that. And on
Right.
top of that, the people challenging this are saying that this ballot initiative the effects would be so they would be multilateral, right? So it's not just one thing. And a ballot initiative basically
Right.
has to be about one thing. And listen, I don't. It would be pretty remarkable to see it get tossed off the ballot. I don't think that's going to happen. I am though.
One of the lawyers for the advocates were
Well, it's
thought
not
it
me.
was a long shot, right?
Yeah,
So
well, Will Lozia, yeah, he's actually a consultant, kind of like this guy who is around. I will say one thing that I didn't get into that's interesting and something I will be looking into is this the precedent being used by the pro cannabis side, saying basically, hey, your ballot initiative to get rid of adult use cannabis is too broad. It affects too many things and it's not all mentioned in the writing. Well, guess what? That was actually used against the pro cannabis set in 2016 when they had their ballot, when they had their initiative put on the ballot. And basically, I have to look at what the exact precedent is, but the sense that I got was that the opponents of weed were saying, no, this is too broad. It affects public health. It affects this. It affects that. And I think this decision basically says as long as like that general gist is there, is adequate. So I'll be reporting on that.
yep.
But a lot of drug reporting. Of course. You want me to try to share for the first time?
Yeah, go for it.
Shall I
Chris
try?
is now going to try to share his screen.
Now going to try.
And this is Chris Faraone, editorial director of the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism. He didn't say at the beginning, but I know we're all labeled, so see it's easy to
I
see.
got the label. Let's see. All right, ready? So if I can share, let's see. Share it's plus.
And by the way, we have someone from Twitch and someone from YouTube watching.
Hey,
Isn't that nice? Hey, Twitch.
Hey. All right, so I'm looking for window. There we go. Oh, look at that. How simple. Okay, so check this out. So this, of course, is. Oh, I don't see it. Maybe.
I will. I do it. Watch. I think. Let's try it.
I see it in there. Oh, look at you.
There it is. So I have to allow it as the producer, but you can give it to me. So that's nice.
Cool. I mean, I got to be honest, Jason. This is a headline that I just didn't. I mean, I knew it was coming, but it's still hard to wrap my head around. And for those, I guess everybody is familiar with OxyContin and Purdue Pharma. I mean,
Yeah. Anyone that reads us certainly is.
Company, maybe in the world. I mean, Amazon. Jeff Bezos is doing a pretty good job, but before Jeff Bezos, there was the Sackler family. And Purdue Pharma, of course, didn't just manufacture and sell OxyContin. They literally got caught after years of testimony. There's been movies, there's been television shows. We now know that they lied about the addictive nature of these drugs. And study after study has shown that it's not just the OxyContin problem that they started, but of course this spiraling catastrophic opioid addiction crisis, which impacted Massachusetts, actually was among the first states to catch it real bad. West Virginia, Massachusetts being not such a hard labor state, I think one of the most educated states, for a different reason than West Virginia. A lot of pain, a lot of coal miners, even early on, essentially tested on with these drugs. Now in Massachusetts, this is the home of the pharmaceutical corporate, not just the companies, but educated drug reps. This was a real testing ground. And there's a consultant, the consulting giant McKinsey, who also has been busted in this regard, worked with Purdue Pharma hand in hand. And we've written extensively about some of this despicable revelations in the documents we've now seen, where basically saying, hey, we know it's addictive, we're going to lie like this, and coming up with programs for physicians, and just really abhorrent practices. But all these years later, I'll get to some of the potential new negatives, but there are some positives, and at least financially. So not all families that lost people are going to be compensated, though some are. But on a more general sense, Purdue Pharma and other companies, a lot of other companies, by the way. I never have anything good to say about Purdue Pharma, but
Right.
it's important to stress that yes, they are the face of this, but there are everyone's CVS, like I said, consultants like McKinsey, and then there are pharmaceutical companies that are distributors that you've never heard of, I've never heard of, and
Hmm.
they wouldn't be paying millions, hundreds of millions, in some cases, in penalties if they were not guilty, or if they were not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the wrong word technically, I think, for some of this. If they were not responsible, frankly. So it, what happened on Monday was kind of crazy. After their settlement, which is $7.4 billion, that's Purdue Pharma's settlement. And that money is going to compensating victims and, as we write, also these initiatives. Some of those initiatives, the ones that go through states. Massachusetts, for example, is going to get more than $1 billion by 2038. Of that $1 billion, about 10%, so about $110 million, $105 million is coming from Purdue Pharma. Of that 7.4 billion that Purdue's spreading around. I know it's a mouthful, but it's important to kind of just register the numbers. So, in addition to all of this money, Purdue Pharma is basically out of business. As we knew it, as it always stood, it's gone. All right, and as of Friday, May 1st. Purdue Pharma is now no pharmaceuticals. Now, I got to say, this is the most annoying fucking name.
And that's how it's pronounced? It's pronounced no. I was going to ask you when I saw your video.
Oh, I don't know. Is it Kanoa?
I don't think it's Kanoa, so no, I think you're right. It's just a strange, very strange name,
It is so annoying, and I got to say, like, already, and it's supposed to be, so again, before I start whining, it is it's basically a public benefit operation now. It is technically a foundation. It's being run. There is a foundation board. It's, as you and I actually run a nonprofit that we're not out here milking it, that everybody can see the numbers. But nonprofit, can you just explain, Jason, to a person who thinks as I may have even before we had our own?
Yep.
Can you just explain why a nonprofit, particularly of this stature, may not just be? I know you know a ton about this shit, but why
is not automatically good? Is that the question? Yeah, I mean, look, it's a corporation like any other corporation, and it basically doesn't, pay taxes because it's supposed to be providing some kind of public or private good, right? Depending on how the IRS views it, there are all kinds of structures that happen underneath the nonprofit umbrella. But I mean, generally speaking, though, it's not organized for profit. So the people that run it are not shareholders. They're not getting, dividends, should profits be made. So like a nonprofit can make profits, but it's generally enjoined to plow a certain amount of its money, back into what it's doing. And, it can't just disperse money willy-nilly. If it does that, if the IRS or state tax authorities decide, that too much salary is being paid, and I'm just saying this, but look, I mean, there are really huge nonprofits, and there are nonprofits that pay, millions of dollars to like top leadership or to board members, stuff like that. So it's not like you can't make a buck working for a big nonprofit, but it's not the main. Most nonprofits are pretty small, and most nonprofits are hand to mouth. They pull in money, they spend the money, and that's the way it is every year. It's difficult for nonprofits to like stack up money and get bigger and bigger and bigger. But of course, the original nonprofits, in my understanding, over 100 years ago, were created by the whole legal regime. Was created by the titans that ran giant corporations back at the turn of the last century, who didn't want to pay when income tax was becoming a thing. Right at the beginning of the 1900s, thanks to the populist and progressive eras, the uprisings of people that were trying to rein in the trusts, as they were called, the giant corporations of the day, the early billionaires of the day or their equivalents, people like Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, like this. These folks obviously didn't want to just give that money to the government, who might, who knows, spend it on the people that they made their money from by, you know, exploiting their labor and ripping them off and despoiling their communities, starting wars, all those great things that corporations do, or, you know, or have a role in doing, if we're talking wars. So they create these nonprofits, and while, at least in theory, these very wealthy people can't profit directly off of the activities of the nonprofits, they get to exercise what's called soft power, right? Like by having this philanthropy, right? The same, rapacious billionaires of the time could try to improve their image. Because what do we also have at that time? We had the rise of the mass media, which had not really been a thing, certainly prior to like 1820s, 1830s in the US, where you had just a lot of newspapers, and many of those newspapers kind of served working people and not the wealthy, right? And played a role in the early democracy in the US. Most of those were gone by the time that we're talking about, like around 1900. But, what was left, though, was this growing mass media that wasn't just print media anymore. It was at that time, 19 teens, 1920s, 1930s, radio, right, was becoming huge. And so a PR industry rose up to serve the very wealthy, and as well as advertising. And advertising industry rose up in this period, right, working the media that was there. And the basic deal was, your classic billionaire like a Henry Ford, who was, and let's be fair, a fascist and a racist, just not a nice guy, right? They wanted to do image management, the early version of it. And one way to do it is to have a philanthropy and take like a tiny fraction of all the money that they're pulling in as very wealthy individuals and devote it to making themselves look good by giving a little bit back, which is a lot by most people's standards, millions of dollars, as opposed to the billions they are making, and doing stuff like, let's say, Vanderbilt built libraries. Like we have one in Somerville. We have them around the area, right? There are all these.
It's relevant, right? Look at the company we're talking about.
Absolutely, this is very relevant. Nothing has changed. It's gotten worse and weirder.
Yeah, right? But I don't want to throw. I don't have a statistic. It doesn't seem as common, but the Sacklers were certainly one of a modern family that was donating and building and putting their name for as much shit as possible.
Well, art museums at Harvard, whatever it is.
They've been taken off now because of how bad Purdue is. If it gives anybody a sense of just how bad this company is, although maybe Standard Oil was as bad in its day, and we just don't.
Absolutely, still. I mean, what's left of it still is, but yeah.
So with this one, listen, we'll see what happens. I think it should be said that the reason it was restructured like this and not just put out to pastures, because one, people are owed money, right? And entities, there's the recovery, there's the cleanup. But the second reason is that it's a too big to fail situation. I think that's the unfortunate part. There are other companies that make opioids. They are still making OxyContin. It's not their biggest product. They're not allowed to market OxyContin. Why you have to market OxyContin after 20 years of people knowing just how effective it is, I don't know. I always tell,
and being hooked on it, so they don't really need to market it to all the junkies, right? So
I always tell my conspiracy theorist friends, like, my problem with the drug companies is not that their drugs don't work. You feel me? It's
yep.
But basically, with this, they're now focusing, and this is the big thing, is what I write about this week, on recovery drugs. And it's not that we don't have the time right now. It's that I'm not here to really pass judgment on all recovery drugs. I obviously understand and know people who need them, who have done well with them. It's important. There's other forms of harm reduction besides just drugs like Suboxone. At the same time, I feel like I am one of the only reporters and people commenting and saying that we really have to look at how much of this stuff is coming into Massachusetts, where it's going, and how. And I am not the only person. I've spoken with researchers. I quote a really good study in here, and this study is one out of Harvard Medical School, says straight up, as opioid manufacturers restructure and pivot towards different product areas, clinicians and policymakers should be mindful that without scrutiny, the stage is set for history to repeat itself. And it says above, and this doesn't necessarily apply here because I said they're not allowed to market. Although I got to say, they're not allowed to market their opioids. I think they may be able to market their so-called recovery drugs, and I say so-called not because I'm a skeptic of their efficacy across the board, but because I think that just by calling them that, these are the kind of things that don't get called into question. But it is unbelievable that I'm not the only one here. Researchers, experts, people a lot smarter than me have been saying for years, we are headed into a recovery drug epidemic, and it just everybody marched us right into it anyway. And I gotta say, politicians who should know better, they're up close to it. They get the phone calls from constituents. I'm not here saying politicians don't get it. They have family members affected. This is not like war and nobody from Congress's kids go, nor do their friends' kids. Everybody's kids and friends have been affected by the opioid crisis and continue to be. And at the on different side of the socioeconomic spectrum, those who are incarcerated, have friends who are incarcerated, know that this is a real problem behind the wall. And there are a lot of people who go in without a problem and come out with one, addicted to methadone. So I don't want to hear it that these are not issues, because I know they are. And for the rest of this year, we'll be covering the hell out of it. We were doing it anyway. In addition, what we have here is a really interesting. It's basically a graph of the people involved with. And you can find this right at BINJ.news, the article on top. But these were basically, all of the entities involved. And if you people who can't see it, what we have are like Purdue Pharma is where my cursor is on the upper right. And then we have other opioid manufacturers right here, elected officials right here, pain advocacy groups. And I want to stress something. So you see Purdue's all the way up here. Okay, pain advocacy groups. Purdue started a lot of those pain advocacy groups, and they're still closer to the politicians than the groups they even started. If that doesn't show how close the politicians are to the actual companies, and also in cahoots with other big pharma. So,
Right.
I don't expect that they were just going to hire a bunch of hippies to run a pharmaceutical company. Certainly, this is something where experience is needed. I did not they did not hire the worst of the worst, but some of the people were involved. Not necessarily, not in the poisoning, but with Purdue Pharma. One is the attorney who basically, walked them out of this litigation nightmare, which is, again, over to a certain extent. The Sacklers are still culpable. The Supreme Court of the United States, to its credit, I don't give credit to the SCOTUS too often these days, did reject a prior agreement, a settlement, which would have left the Sacklers off the hook. I'm sorry, would have made it so that they many, not all, I think, but majority of future lawsuits could have been prevented. And Supreme Court said fuck no, basically, and better off for it. Yeah, and so now they came, so now it all came down to Monday, and I think really the message here is that to not pass judgment just yet, but to watch it. I think that we're just not getting enough attention. Every day there's some dumb new shit in the news. One day dumber than the next. Certainly the Met Gala takes the fucking cake for this week, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I've read some interesting stuff on that already. Actually,
I swear, if I had $100,000, I'd go with a no pharmaceuticals blazer on, just so
right.
to raise the awareness. I mean, or is it Cano? Whatever the hell it is, I don't Cano.
Whatever it is.
It's a terrible name, but I guess
well, it's sort of like Leslie Knope on Parks and Rec. Her name was spelled, I think, Knope, right? It was pronounced, Nope, I guess.
So, other than that, I did want to just go briefly about, and I have his thing right here. People can check it out. This is Owen Higgins. I would call someone who's written for BINJ early on. One of our great early reporters, did some really good stuff for us. Of course, Owen, who we should definitely have on this show.
If he will deign to come on, absolutely.
Definitely will. I mean, hey, Owen came and did our fundraiser and came.
No, I know. I'm half kidding, but it's just like, whoa,
this is closer because he lives all the way across state. But yeah, Owen really, I put out one hell of a book last year, and we wrote about it. We interviewed him, did a real long. Oh shit! I'm a subscriber, but I'm not on that one for the record.
Right, right.
So it's called Owned, and it's about Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald, and about basically how they sold out to the right, but not just the right, but tech billionaires in particular platform. And Matt Taibbi and his work on the so-called Twitter files, the stupidest fucking name for a series of all time, which was essentially like when Elon Musk took over, like showing how Twitter had really worked for the Democratic Party.
He'd have been super woke and whatever, yeah.
For me, I kind of chalk it up to who gives a shit, but whatever. Not even to diss the reporting. In all fairness, Taibbi has done some great work over the years, and he has sucked of late. He's one of these people who, listen, I always think it's just hilarious when you see how these people who have such enormous success on the left, and they're such fucking children, where, it's not like you or I were sitting there thinking the Russiagate stuff was like some smoking gun, like all libs.
No, it was bullshit. It's so
stupid. And if we had this show back then, we'd be able to, and just like, you have right, I'm sure you wrote it, but my point is this, like, they weren't alone. A lot of progressives thought it was a waste of time. We have, between domestic issues and more foreign issues, which now have all blown up in our face, right? But with Taibbi and Greenwald too, those were things like, and listen, I get it. They had a higher profile. They were getting shelled for saying this is a ridiculous line of thinking, but to turn around and I wouldn't say that not either one is just straight up espousing right wing values on a daily basis, but a lot of their decisions and subject matter and subjectivity certainly has reflected that viewpoint. It's just fucking corny because it's like, did you not mean it in the first place? Like for me, I always, a fear, of course, and I think I would probably agree with those two, anti-wokesters on the degree that the fucking cancel shit was real if you're an editor and stuff, but it's real.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not, that wasn't what concerned me about not so much Greenwald, but Taibbi, I thought was drifting to the right to some degree.
Yeah, you read Greenwald a lot still, right?
Yeah, I watch Greenwald periodically, although I feel like he's not pumping as much stuff out, since he lost his husband and stuff like that. But
he's passed away.
Yeah. It was bad. It was bad. Yeah. I mean, in Brazil.
That'll affect a person, but not to mention, Greenwald's one of these people, to his credit, who's just a fucking animal. I mean, he never stopped when he was writing.
Yeah.
Who could ever?
That's the thing.
People are just so. But anyway, so Greenwald did speak. And there's, again, if anybody's interested in this, our interview with Owen is really pretty extensive about this book. And Greenwald did speak with him, I think, a few times. They were on decent terms. Taibbi did not respond, I believe, even to questions. But they definitely didn't do an interview for the book. The book is solid. I think it's not only a good book. It's got a lot of it points to the stuff to direct things to direct. I don't know, say evidence as much as examples of the phenomena that Owen's referring to, and Taibbi, like a big old fucking baby, sued him. And I have it up here because I'm not going to go 1 inch outside of what Owen has written because, again, Taibbi's apparently a big fucking giant child who sues people.
It would be really ludicrous for him to sue us. If it was ludicrous for him to sue Owen, it would be idiotic.
I do want to read what Owen writes, just not just for the sake of it, but because I think it's important to that point. So he says, first of all, Matt Taibbi's defamation case against me and my publisher, Hachette. For the cover, because it's like a cover. Where is it? Where it's like he's being pulled by like puppet strings. Anyway, and he says the case in his book, Owned: How Tech Billionaires on the Right Bought the Loudest Voice on the Left, was dismissed today, May 5th. The entire judgment, he says, is worth reading. So I also say, by the way, this is Owen's Substack. So Owen is spelled E-O-I-N, by the way. Higgins, you find his Substack. It's called Flashpoint. It's damn good. It's one of my my few 100+ subscriptions, but definitely one that I read regularly. And he goes, for all the fun we're having at Taibbi's expense, and that's a good thing. He should, at the very least, be publicly humiliated for this. And this is what Higgins writes. What he did is part of a worrying trend I've written about recently. From what I can tell, this case wasn't filed to win. It was filed to do two things: harass me to cost me time and money, and to make publishers think twice about working with me in the future. In other words, attacking me personally and professionally. And 2, putting other would-be critics on notice that if you come for Taibbi, he'll make it cost you. But we didn't mean it.
It's not a good look for a journalist to sue another journalist, over their,
so bad.
you know,
and
over their work and opinions. But yeah, I mean,
off the reservation, as somebody who's not a big peer approval guy in the first place, I think it's really interesting. Kind of shows that Taibbi is a man on an island, and I hope he's enjoying the company of Greenwald and whoever the fuck else wants to hang out.
My view of those folks is like, you and I certainly both know just from our own journalism that, there's two wings of the American ruling class, the Republicans and the Democrats. And, we're on the left. We're generally left of the Democrats, certainly at the federal level on a lot of issues, as are a lot of Americans. And we get that there should be a lot more reporting on the bullshit that the Democratic leadership pulls on a bunch of different issues on the public, pulling the wool over their eyes, basically, on a bunch of topics. And it's a good idea to call them out for it, right? Russiagate would be one example. Yeah. There are many, many others, right? So these guys, I don't have a problem with these guys doing that. I have a problem with these guys, particularly Taibbi, kind of like, if he was going to move leftward and say like, hey, I'm a socialist journalist. Like I'm doing these critiques from the left, from the real left. That would be fine, right? Yeah, depending on what he's saying. But that's not what he's doing, and Greenwald also a bit, at least, it's one thing to be like Mr. Free Speech and to like be willing to talk to a Tucker Carlson or whatever. I can see situations where one might do that. But, it seems like both these characters, particularly Taibbi, were edging up too close to the fire, to the point where sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between someone like a Taibbi and a typical right winger, right? And that's the opening that people like this gave to Higgins, and Higgins leapt right into it, right? And so, these guys did, whatever they did. Any good reporter can report on it. Higgins did this, Owen did this, and they may not like it, but the truth is the ultimate arbiter, right? This goes back to the Zenger case in the colonial days. The ultimate defense in these kinds of libel and defamation cases is the truth. If you're telling the truth, then the person suing has no case. And it's certainly looking that way here. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I just had a little show and tell real quick from Bay Area.
Let's turn off this thing because when we're talking and we have this thing on, like it makes the stuff that Opus Clip chooses look tiny. Oh shit. It keeps coming back. It won't go away. Hold on a second. Okay.
All right. So first of all, when was the last time you saw one of those?
Oh wow. Well, I have a couple, right nearby here.
So yeah. A newish 2600 Hacker quarterly.
I've read it on and off over the many years. Yeah.
30 years. There's an article about ALPR in there, automatic license plate readers. So I like that. We've of course been on that for years. And
Chris has written a lot about that. Yep.
Then we got a new issue of Adbusters.
I didn't even know that was still coming out.
Yeah, one of my first clips ever was an Adbusters, actually.
So you're buying new magazines now for your collection and for your sort of
collection. Yeah, Adbusters, of course, one of the great ad-free magazines. It's just amazing. They, Occupy Wall Street. They were an early, and then
they're one of the reasons that Occupy happened. Yeah,
they're pushing the Pirate Party big.
Are they? I didn't know that because I didn't. The Pirate Party. I know some of the leadership around Massachusetts, but they haven't exactly been
the good James O'Keefe.
Yeah, we mean the good Jamie O'Keefe.
And then a few more things real quick. I got
for example,
the Berkeley Barb, which is a classic alt weekly, but this is my birth month, September 79. Really what a find. They had 2 issues and one happened to be, and of course nothing changes, prison abuse, all the deal. So I'll be digging into that later. Got an amazing just illustrated publication here.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, this is just imagine the talent. This dude, I can't really figure out what his name is, but it's Mikey Rieger, Reger. But wow, I mean, just like really, and of course, it's amazing because it's like
Yeah, I see it.
very R. Crumb.
Yep.
But the stories are like '90s punk stories, really just incredible. That anybody could do this just blows me away. And then I want to give a shout out to the to the crew at the young reporters at Berkeley. They have a magazine called Stacks. I picked a couple of copies of that up.
Nice.
And then finally, this is incredible. This is something we should do. This is the American Penal Press. So we're friends with Jesse from San Quentin News.
Right.
And he is just an unbelievable organizer, and he works with all these different other prison reporting initiatives and foundations. And this has articles from, there's a map in here somewhere, like 20 different prisons. And I'm thinking, like, here it is, all across the country, none in Massachusetts, but so there's articles in here, and it's a beautiful print publication, just amazing. And it was, by the way, it's a contest winner. So like, we should do something like that for AAN, for our trade association.
Well, I mean, we should probably join AAN if we're going to do that.
To hip hop, you don't get a lot of hip hop zines. Zines are usually the punk domain. Very excited for these. And then, kind of inspiring actually, to do my own. And then I got a very hard to find Maggot Brain, which is Jack White of Third Man Records. You know, he has this awesome record store in Detroit, and somehow they put this magazine out, and it's just so awesome. Really, really reminds me of like Vice or Yellow Rat Bastard from New York City in the early 2000s.
Where were you finding this stuff? In music stores?
Pegasus books. Yeah, I mean, you know, you live near Cambridge, you know, so basically and I'm fortunate to have Cambridge, but I gotta say, I think maybe it's not just because I'm coming from out of town that when I am in the East Bay, it is funkier than Somerville for sure. So, of course, and harder to get to from San Francisco than Cambridge is from Boston.
Right. Right.
Anyway, that's my show and tell. Let's chop this up. Let's get the clips out, man.
Yeah, I mean, so thanks, folks, for watching. We had a few streamers this time. That's nice. Because we didn't even say we were doing this. We just kind of did it. We thought we'd push it afterwards and see how that works. But we will chop the best bits up into short videos and get them out to thousands of viewers, which we're pleased with. And, you know, next episode, I might even have something to talk about. Allergies are really frying me this week, folks. It's like bad tree allergy time. And Chris has been traveling in the last several days, so he's got extra stuff to like talk about.
There's a list of potential of people who sell opioids to the people who decide which opioids the state buys and how much. And I'm just going to start calling them tomorrow, see what they have to tell me.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we have our journalist cynicism about stuff like, you know, a big nonprofit that's involved in selling opioids and so-called recovery drugs that are basically other opioids, that it might not be above board, since the stuff that they did before absolutely was not above board. But, you know, if Chris is suspending his disbelief for now, then I will too. I'm not going to speculate on what might be going on or any shell companies that might actually be marketing when marketing isn't supposed to be happening. Perish the thought that I should say such a thing. You know, we'll just wait, right? We'll wait and see what we dig up. So, all right, folks, we'll be back next week as far as we know. Same bat time, same bat channel. And currently YouTube and Twitch, Tuesdays at 8 p.m., except sometimes we move that around. Sometimes we skip a week depending on our schedules. But 2 weeks from now, we're slated to have a former intern who we're actually running a piece from, I think this week or possibly next week. Madison Lucchese will be on the show. And she's been doing a bunch of stuff, burning up the course, finishing up at Emerson College. And, you know, she's written for the Globe. She's written for other places. So we're excited to talk to her about what's up with her. And actually that same night, right before that show in 2 weeks, on the 19th, Someone we've had in the show before, Shira Lasharin, who's a colleague of ours, and a protege, I guess we would dare say, that we helped, like edit her and stuff over the years. She's also a brilliant composer and pianist and singer, just general all around musician. She has a show at the Jungle in Somerville. I think she's going on 6 p.m. on Tuesday, May 19th. So if folks want to check out Shira, I'm sure we'll be pushing it, in print a little bit too, or whatever. You can go check out Shira's work. And she has an Instagram now, but I'm not going to spell her name right now. We'll push stuff out about her soon enough. So, okay, folks, talk to you soon. Bye. And we'll be back. Peace. I'm going to end the stream. We're